Hello, and it's day 3 of the coronavirus lockdown, and I'm here with Irma, and we're going to try and do a video probably most days about this because here we are in the house, and funnily enough, the pretty high chance that you're in the house as well, and if not, I'll send the police round to come and get you. This is I've never shared this with anybody before actually, but this is my grandmother's pocket watch, and a wonderful little piece of apparatus which it actually chimes the time every 15 minutes. So it's a wonderful piece of Victorian engineering. But the point is that the one thing we've got a lot of on our hands right now is time. And one of the first things I think to get our head around is that we're stuck with our beloved 24/7, where we might otherwise have just seen them fleetingly. How does it feel?
Well, it feels it's a challenge, more so when it's a brand new relationship and you have to adjust time and ways of living and your space, and it's a love or hate relationship from 1 minute to the next. But at the end of the day, well, carry on.
Yeah, at the end of the day, here we are, and there's different sort of phases. Hello, Haroon, and hello, Maggie. I hope Stuart's watching as well. There are different stages of relationships that are affected by this sudden, very unnatural, because we're in a sort of once in 100 years type environment here, so we dipped through the papers to see what they're saying. We've got very unusually juxtaposed a little bit out of the Guardian, a little bit out of the Daily Express, and a bit out of CNN, and a lot of our views as well. But the BBC recently posted, hello Michael, thanks for joining us. The BBC recently posted a little article about a lady who just met a young man. They've been on a fantastic first date. There was a spark. And then suddenly we've got this lockdown. So they want to protect themselves. And, what do? In that article, they didn't even kiss on the first date, come on.
Yeah.
But then what he did is he sent her a bottle of wine, and they were going to try and watch a film simultaneously on Netflix, and they were able to sit down, and you can't do the sort of small talk, can you really, with a camera like this? And so...
Hello, Aaron.
Hey, hello, Haroon. Thank you for being with us. So we're looking at the different types of relationships today and how they might be affected by the extraordinary situation that we find ourselves in. So this, you've had one date, and that's it, and you've got to kind of decide what to do next. And so you find yourself on the other end of a sort of webcam, but you can't suddenly step out of the dating app anymore. And swiping left and right is all you've got. So how does that feel?
Well, I think it's a bit like going back to the olden days in which relationships were more about relationship, not just the physical and one quick stop shop, if you know what I mean. But it's more about understanding each other and really get to appreciate the tone of voice, the looking at you in your eyes. Sometimes you have to look down in order to look at your own photo, but it's about just pure natural interaction with each other, and really try to make that gel of personalities from far, and then have that magic moment when all of these crises passes and goes by and says, hey, remember those days when we were talking about that? And it's just amazing.
Hello, Sue. Hello, Fiona. We're talking about relationships and how this new world order that we've got for a few weeks is going to affect it all. So we've gone past Tinder and those kind of dates and things, and how you can kind of spice it up online a bit by kind of pretending to be in the same room, I suppose, and dressing up a bit and watching the same film and that kind of thing, which is great. And the advice actually came from the government's Deputy Chief Medical Officer at that morning press conference on Tuesday, when she was asked whether couples who lived apart could continue this telecommuting between, I don't know, York and Penzance or whatever, and she was kind of quite reluctant to commit on this, and I think the situation now seems to be that people will have to make that decision? Maybe they've been living
Your
together.
place or mine?
Well, that's the age-old question, isn't it? But maybe they've been dating on and off, seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week for 6 months or something. But this is the make or break moment when they've got to decide, to hunker down and try it, or
Hello,
to
Fiona.
oh hello, or to be sort of consigned to the other side of the screen for 3 months, 6 months. Who knows? So that's going to put a kind of a huge strain on things, if you like, and this is going to affect roommates as well, who are going to be sort of cooped up together, and kids. But principally, what we're talking about today is the sort of relationship aspect of thing. So how do you we've been going out 3 months hypothetically, and I say, well, move in, and it might seem a bit premature because we haven't even kissed yet because we're quite chaste and all that.
Well,
so how does that work?
Well,
How does it feel?
many relationships, I assume. One of them, for example, I was reading of a case. I deal with cases. So of a situation in which the lady was living in the north of England and the boyfriend in the south. And with this lockdown, and the bond was there, very strong bond, and they had to make a decision, so they moved together. So it is a matter of coordinating our likes and dislikes and really give each other a little bit of room to do your own thing, so you don't lose your own personality in terms of the relationship. Because after all, a relationship is about two people. We are all individuals. We need to continue being individuals, and with this coronavirus stuff that is keeping us apart, we need to get back together and begin to learn the dance of life, that's going to keep us going forward as a relationship.
Hello, Kevin, and hello, Mervyn. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about the impact on our relationships of this rather artificial sort of lockdown situation. And probably, have you heard of LDRs? There are websites dedicated to this, long-distance relationships.
Oh,
And,
yes.
on YouTube, you see these people who've been dating, from opposite sides of the world, and then they meet up at the airport and they rush together, and it's kind of it usually sort of works actually, and they film this and they get very tearful and this kind of thing, and we can be in a situation now where those two people live in the same town, they know all the same landmarks, a lot of the same people, and if they make the decision not to move in at this kind of crucial point where we're all kind of self-isolating, then they could find themselves in a similar position, I guess.
Yes, you guess right. But it's like a little poem from W.H. Davies, in which we were so busy living lives, working very hard, reaching the targets, reaching the money, coming in, bills, children, cars, everything. So we didn't have time to stand and stare beneath the bones and stare as long as sheep or cows. Now we have a time to really reflect as to what we really want of our relationship, what is going to come at the other side of this very interesting time, and is it going to be stronger? Are we going to come to a decision? You know something, it didn't work, but let's just find that little spark that first got us together. At one point, I know of marriages that have been for 20, 30, how many years, 5 even, that they've lost that little tiny spark that they first got to see on each other's eyes, and make us fall in love and begin the dance of love and of a relationship. So I think I went on the tangent. It's just...
No, absolutely. I mean, in the modern world in which we live, and hello, Fred, it's relationships are kind of not the same as they used to, because very often both partners are working. Very often they'll be working on different shifts, different shift patterns. They might, our son and his girlfriend are on opposite ends of the thing, and they sort of see each other in the middle every now and again. So suddenly people will find that they see an awful lot more of their partner than might otherwise be the case. And so that is a relationship tester thing. Very often, I don't know if you know this thing, but solicitors' offices who work on divorces don't allow people to have time off in the first week in January, because very often people who are both very busy, busy professionals, if you like, will spend 10 days together at Christmas and work out what an awful mistake it's all been. So that there are two sides to the coin.
Yes, there are. I don't know what to say to that.
Well,
in terms of,
okay, so we'll move it back onto the thing of communication, because I think most relationships, I mean, they start with initial warmth, and then it's to keep it going. And the ones that succeed, these are the guys that are on the same wavelength, that communicate, that understand each other's thoughts and emotions, and sometimes can almost like communicate without words, if you like.
Yes, that's right. In fact, that's one of the first communication of the dance of love. Somehow you just walk in, minding your own business on the street, and then you see this fantastic person right in front of your eyes, and you don't know what that is, that attraction to this person, and it just happens, and it is the magic of the dance of love. So with these interesting times, we need to learn the basics of a relationship, of standing, of enjoying, of the small pleasures that are not just physical but emotional. And it comes down to that little thing that some people call soul, some people call that very magic, mysterious thing that we cannot describe, that we cannot name, but that get us together in the first instance.
And then there'll be a question of sort of people's perception of things, because while the one partner might think, as it says in CNN actually, that the sky is falling in, the other person thinks it's no big deal. So how do you compromise and all this kind of thing when there's no possibility to sort of like go out and take a deep breath and take a walk for 5 minutes and come back and everything, because we're all in lockdown? How does that sort of work out, being sort of in this confined space, with your partner, where all you can do is go to the next room when you need a bit of personal space? We sometimes do that. I have to admit. And so there'll be a lot of people who have both got their professions and who are both quite busy 9 to 5 or whatever. So should they try and work in the same space, in the same room, or should they set up office or whatever, home office, in different spaces? What do you think?
I think it should be in different spaces. I mean, your work is going to be sacrosanct because it's part of your personality. I assume that the work you do is what you love and like doing. If not, what are you doing? I mean, I understand that sometimes we have to take up on jobs and to pay our bills and everything else, but it comes as part of the journey. To make a decision and say, this is what I love doing, whichever that is. It doesn't matter if you like cleaning lavatories or anything else, as long as you're the best one at doing things like that.
I am.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, it's going back to basics. If you like what you're doing, you need your space. For example, if you are a creative type of person, you need your own room, and your partner should really understand that kind of situation in which you need to be by yourself, with your thoughts, doing the creative work. And if you're just different kind of personality, you need sometimes, I don't know, I need my office. You need your office to do your numbers.
Yes.
David is the kind of person that he sees a spreadsheet of numbers and he just completely, he's in a world of his own, and I've just stepped to one side. But we can have, I don't know, romantic dinners in the kitchen and just...
But you see,
take a date in the kitchen.
People do work now in open plan offices, so there is a precedent set for people working in the same space, and
Yes.
it's something that we're all kind of used to. So I'm not sure that would necessarily work. Oh, hello, Andrew Roberts. Andrew says hello from Baker Street Live. Hey guys, you're doing a Corona show as well tonight, I believe. So different slight aspect of it. And hello to AJ Alexandria, to Corinna as well, and to Veronica. It's very good to have your company this evening. Now, Kevin says it's been awkward for Dorney, his other half, and himself, because they live separately, but they're making do with Skype at the moment.
Well, isn't that romantic? Isn't that just a fantastic time to just remember when we used to kind of thing? Well, if you know what I mean. But you can always make it more interesting in terms of communication and really understand how fabulous your couple is, even from afar. and of course being with them if they're poorly, and just giving that strength during these interesting times.
Yes, yes. Hello, Sue. Hello, Donny. We were just talking about you and Kevin. Hello, Paul. It's very nice to have you on board again, because you're watching the one that we did in Ely about a week and a half ago. And Nicholas, hello, and also Helen. So this thing about relationships and lockdowns and the profound changes and the compromises and the way that it really is going to shake things up is what we're talking about, and how we can succeed, and there's been a suggestion here. A lady called Molly Tolsky on Twitter. She's a writer. Quite rather suggested that we should, and I think it's quite a nice idea really, to invent a mythical co-worker on whom we can blame disagreements.
Yes.
How does that sound?
Yep. It used to be the PA, and still the PA, forever the PA.
Absolutely.
Never our fault.
And then it's never our fault at all. And I think that's a great thing.
No, hang on. Well, what coronavirus could we name it?
We could Corrie. There we are.
Corrie.
So, but no offence to Corinna listening there. So that's we'll think of some different name. Okay. So oops. Right. Then there's always the question as well as to how, when the lockdown eases up, will we sort of slip back into the old ways, do you think, or will we have changed forever? Will this be a pivotal moment, as in many areas of our lives? Will there be no going back from what we've got? So will couples, for example, continue to work from home? Will employers let them? Will it actually strengthen the fabric and the bonds of society, in the sense of, at the moment we're all united, which is great. We're united against a common adversary. There's this tiny little thing you can't see. We've forgotten about Brexit. We've forgotten about who's in charge of the Labour Party and lots of other contentious issues. We're no longer talking about building a bridge from Scotland to Northern Ireland. So that's focused our minds terrifically, and we're moving forward sort of very positively as a nation, I think, and as a planet, because scientists from all around the world are freely sharing information. Nobody's looking to patent anything or steal a march on things. There's a bit of sort of competitiveness in terms of who's got the most number of vaccines, because I noticed that Israel said the other day that they're going to have one ready in 3 months, to which Russia countered, well, we're working on 6 different ones. But that's healthy.
Wouldn't it be
rivalry.
amazing that they get a vaccine finally, or a set of medications? I don't know, something like just to get this thing out of the way. And but I think it's going to be a time of reset our values, our purpose, and why not be more engaged with our in our relationships, with our families, with our children, with ourselves even, because it is a matter in which we can just stop and stare at the mirror and says, okay, what are you telling me, mirror? Who am I? And just fall in love every single day. And I'm reading just something here, which is something that I have on my timeline. I mean, success is not a straight line. We're not talking about success. We're talking about relationships here. And as long as we are on the road, we must be going somewhere in terms of relationship. So long we keep that bond strong.
Yes. Another way in which we're on Noah's Ark, aren't we, really? And only we're the animals. Having a rota, if you like. I used to run these.
Hide in the bathroom.
I'm going to hide in the bathroom now with Kevin.
I'm sorry. Well,
sorry, Donny. Now, when I used to run some kind of, what were they called? Today they're called houses of multiple occupation, but then they were called just bed sits. And I had a couple of those back in the day, and I used to have rotas for the people who lived there, whereby it was your turn to do the cleaning and your turn to do the washing up or whatever, and they were self-enforcing. That's just a normal clearing my throat cough for the avoidance of doubt, just so you know. And do you think couples should have something similar, so that I decided it's my turn to do the hoovering, the dishes today, and it's your turn to iron the curtains or something like that?
There's one thing you can do: cook. can cook.
I made the most delicious omelette the other day, I'll have you know.
Oh yes, I do apologize.
Beginner's luck.
It's a good learner, yeah.
Beginner's luck. So you know, there's a thought to sort of having the schedules, you know, to reduce conflict has got to be one kind of very important aim here, and emotions get magnified. One partner is kind of really kind of, I don't know, up or down or something, and the other one comes along, and so where in your normal relationship it's like that, like when you're cooped up in the same thing, it's going up and down madly. They did these experiments, didn't they, a while ago, where they were practicing for missions to Mars, and so they were cooping people up in sort of confined spaces like this, and they were actually kind of regulating the daylight a bit differently as well to make it sort of a bit extreme. But you get sort of situations of conflict. Being a rock band on the road would be probably a similar one. Being stuck in the tour bus all the time, and obviously let's not forget people who because of some kind of physical impairment or injury have to live at home all the time. Let's remember these kind of folks for whom this is normal, and you know, there has to be ways around it. I hear that Relate and these kind of people have now gone online. So there is hope if we're sort of heading for the rocks or whatever, which is a very encouraging sign. But you know, it's a very important, really, to if I was sitting there on my own in isolation, I'd go out absolutely insane. So kind of to have a partner there absolutely sort of reinforces the whole thing. It stops me going insane, and it might drive you insane, but you know, it's very beneficial and helpful to me. And I think, you know, to have somebody, especially somebody with whom you're close, to share tribulations as well as sort of happy times. I mean, the old wedding thing is in sickness and in health, and good times and bad. Well, you know, we can create our own good times, I think, out and create strength out of adversity, and take control of the situation that we found ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. It is a matter of making a decision and say, okay, what got us together the first time, and just to reenact those magical moments that first got you together, guys. And anyway, I think there's something going on at the time in which we all have to say thank you to the NHS for doing the right. And I'm not out of attention. I think you just want to give a quick clap to the NHS for really being there for us.
Absolutely.
So we need to keep indoors, keep our relationships very, very healthy, understanding what we are humans and that we have many faults. But hey, without those faults, we will be so boring.
Now, absolutely. That almost sounds like the end, but it isn't.
Okay.
That's the end of the beginning.
Okay.
And there's another question about, you know, how to keep the relationship sort of fresh and spiced up and this kind of thing. And we saw, and you may have seen, a video on one of those video channels, YouTube, I think, other video channels are available, about a young lady who was trying to, who had a terrific relationship with her partner, possibly not after what she did, but to keep the relationship fresh, she tipped some, I think, baking powder or something into some ketchup, and she shook this up as a sort of prank to prank him when he got home. But the prank kind of backfired on her, because what it does is it spectacularly sprays sort of red splodge everywhere. But
was it ketchup?
well, we're not going to give people the recipe because we don't try this at home, okay? But the idea was to spice things up a bit, and it kind of backfired in that in the hour or two before he was due home, she had to spend her time on a ladder cleaning the ceiling. So there are kind of perhaps, you know, limits to that sort of thing. But what about boredom? What if, I mean, it is, although it's the most wonderful thing in the world to spend all this time, what about the fact that, you know, we're not climbing mountains, going out on our bicycle, going to the cinema, going to restaurants and all that kind of thing? What's the best way to sort of fill in the gaps, if you like?
Any ideas, anyone? It'd be nice to throw your comments.
Please give us your thoughts in the comments as we go along, because I keep forgetting to scroll, and there's lots of other stuff going on. So hello to Claudia, and to Kevin. I haven't seen you for a little while, and Samantha's on. Nikki Price, well, hey, the man who discovered George Michael, I kid you not, that fellow from Wham, which is a tremendous story for another day, perhaps. Julie's joined us, and my very good friend Ronnie from New Mexico has joined us, and a very good evening to you, Samantha. It's terrific to have you on board on this day 3 of the lockdown, and so far we've managed to avoid massacring each other. We've done a pretty good job. I mean, I have been in handcuffs most of the time, but you know.
I tend to lock my office.
And so
No,
so now we've got these government guidelines, and they were pretty strict and pretty precise, and the Prime Minister outlined them on Monday evening. Since then, various other ministers have been sort of refining it a bit and defining whether really a company that sells, I don't know, pet collars is a vital industry to the nation or whatever. Can we assume that a couple is in harmony about the interpretation of these rules, or maybe one of them's a bit gung ho and the other one's a bit too OCD about it? I mean, you know, how to resolve those kind of issues? Do you think?
Well, it is a shock. To start with, for me, it was a shock. Luckily, I managed to see my son for Mother's Day, but it is difficult being on a new relationship, and try to get to terms with reality, with scared, with worried, but then it's a roller coaster of emotions. But you have to come out the other way, and just look at the positive side of things. For me, this is a reset time in every single aspect of my life. It's a reset of how things are going forward and finding everything else.
I was practicing this for about a fortnight before all the government guidelines came in, because I'm very fond of spreadsheets and numbers and things, and we know absolutely that this virus is far more widespread than the official government figures would suggest, because if you've got a virus that's affecting 8,000 or 9,000 people right now, you don't need 4,000 beds in the Excel Centre in London. So it's much bigger, much bigger. And we'll talk about that another time. I've done some calculations on my spreadsheet, and I've got some numbers. But but what I did is I kind of and you know. It caused a bit of
it caused a lot of friction at the beginning.
To start with, but we're in the zone now, and you know, outside that front door, it's a red zone. So everybody's a zombie, and even the postman, when he puts his fingers on the letterbox and it goes to the letterbox, that might be glowing in the dark. So with that in mind, we've turned our hall at home into a sort of airlock like you'd have in a space station, if you like.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we bring in the perishables, which will be like the fruit and the stuff that goes in the freezer, and we stick it in the sink and we wash it with soap. Okay, this is perhaps over the top a bit, but here we are healthy. and then the other stuff, these little horrible virally things, they're not alive, but they stay intact and able to infect you for about probably 9 or 10 days. So we quarantine that shopping, the cornflakes packets and the loo rolls. Yes, we have got some. And
put my stash to one side so it doesn't know.
We stick them in the hall for about 14 days. It might make us a trifle eccentric, and all the letters, I open them very tentatively by the front door, and then I leave the envelopes on the mat, and then in between bouts of hand washing, sort of take that stuff down to the bin. But that works. When we're out and about, it's terribly difficult not to scratch your face and all this sort of stuff, which is hardwired into us. But I was practicing it religiously, if that's the word, for 2 weeks before all this stuff kicked in. And I read somebody's post, which was terribly funny the other day, how to avoid fiddling with your face and everything. He said, stick your fingers in cow dung, and that will solve it. So if we sort of imagine that, that's probably
garlic. Some people use garlic. I think, one of us said, Rupert, I think he said garlic is a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
And I must say, kudos to David. When everything started, first with the first news from Wuhan, David just immediately went to his laptop and started working on his spreadsheets. And I thought, this is just becoming too much. And it did affect us to start with, because I'm a very positive kind of person. I tend to look at the bright side always, and I was seeing the opposite of that coming from David, just because he was so obsessed and he worked the numbers, and the numbers completely adhering to what is happening now. So I understand that, and I need to understand that I'm the positive, and it's not that he's negative. It's just that he's realist. He's a realist, and he's got the numbers, and he crunches the numbers, and.
I mean, I don't, to be fair, walk around in a tinfoil hat. I didn't get too excited about SARS and MERS and all that kind of thing because they were sort of pretty easy to contain. And the sort of things that we're doing now, okay, it's a pain in the posterior, but China did it and they enforced it quite strictly. They were sort of welding shut the doors of blocks of flats and that kind of thing, which I'd love to do, but I haven't got a welding kit, so that will have to pass. But no new cases. The only new cases in China right now are the ones
where Korea also.
South Korea as well. We're doing very well. Germany's doing quite well as well. So those are the top three, and those measures work, and they do work, and it keeps this thing under control. And once we get to a point where basically by locking ourselves up now, every person with the disease will infect fewer than one person. So if every person infects like 0.3 of a person, which is the target, this thing just withers away and dies. If every person affects 3 people, it explodes and the whole planet turns bright blue and disappears into the ether. So it's a very serious thing that we're doing, especially the fact that there are no symptoms with this thing. That's quite a kind of scary thing. While you're infecting people whilst you already have it, and so the fellow at work or in the post office or whatever that you see. Oh, and there was a very funny thing happened this morning because we ran out of toner cartridge for the printer, so we ordered some more.
Hello, Veronica.
And hello, Veronica. Yes, Veronica's been with us quite a while actually. So the guy comes along to deliver the toner cartridge. He puts it on the step. He steps about 10 meters back with his phone and takes a photo of me picking up the cartridge, and I gave him a thumbs up. And that's the sort of way that the new and hopefully temporary world order. I mean, I don't think any of us would realistically tolerate the government doing this for reasons of, I don't know, we voted for the wrong party or something or blah blah blah. But there's a real reason and a real spirit, and it's not like I was talking to my uncle today. He's 89 years old, and he remembers, for example, the days of the Blitz in London. Now that was really something, and you had to rush down to the air raid shelters and hide there while the bombs are falling, and you'd shelter in the underground stations, and you come up and your house would be gone. But all we're asking now is just stay indoors for a few weeks.
Stay indoors and respect the people. There was one thing that from that conversation in which he went to the shop and there was a massive queue that he just turned back. I think, why do we need to buy so much stuff? Let's just be creative with our food. Let's be creative with our relationship with what this conversation is about, and be creative with yourself. For example, if you meditate, if you do yoga, if you do exercise, try to allocate that time and stick to it. It is very difficult once you're in the household and, okay, I'm supposed to be going to work, you're supposed to be into work, but we're not. So try to make your own kind of organize yourself and be creative with yourself. Do your yoga, do your exercise, eat healthily. This is your opportunity to really be very healthy and not to overeat, not to overindulge, and just enjoy quality time with your family. If they happen to be poorly, just be there for them. I remember I had some kind of infectious disease when I was young, and I was put in a little apartment which was next to the house, and I was in quarantine. So what I did is I had a walkie-talkie, and if I needed something, and I would ask, oh, can you give me this? And I would make it fun. I was young, and they would just open the door and just put the foot in, close the door, and that was it. But so it is your time to really reset yourselves, to really understand yourself, do your own routine, and stick to it, and be gracious about it, comment about it, and it's not like every morning you just said, oh, did you have a nice sleep? Yes, I did. Okay, let's go to work. No, just be creative in your conversations, in everything.
There's this saying, isn't there? Whatever doesn't finish us off makes us stronger. And I think that most relationships will emerge from this stronger, because strength in the face of adversity is a sort of common challenge that we're facing, both personally speaking and as a nation as well. I think it'll probably repair all the damage that's been done by the very damaging politics of the last sort of 3 or 4 years. Hopefully that will sort of provide a great sort of time of healing for people. Oh, hello to Linda and hello to Zoe. Thank you, and hello to Tobias, who came from my hometown, and hello Lee.
Is Samantha still here?
I believe so. We're talking about relationships and how suddenly, unexpectedly, everything changed on Monday, and from seeing your spouse or partner for 2 minutes a week, suddenly you're in the same house 24/7, and this is a real crunch time, make or break for the relationships. And there's no doubt that there are going to be ups and downs, and a lot of the stuff that the counsellors say in normal times is going to hit home, is going to be appropriate. Like, for example, don't use catastrophic language like I do all the time. This is the end of the world. Blah, blah, blah. Just calm it down, and try and strike a balance, and try and relate to your partner, to their feelings and their thoughts, and these things are important. These things are important, and if one of us does something extremely irritating, and that again mostly me, then the wise one counts to 10 and takes deep breaths and everything, and then explains why it wasn't good to, I don't know.
We take turns on that one. We take turns.
Yeah. Well, whatever. But luckily, I didn't have to. Oh, yeah. Let's have another one of these because I'm going to do my. That's just for effect, really, because I'm quite healthy. Having having isolated myself since goodness knows when. Where were we? Oh yes. One other consideration to think about as well, and this came from Elle magazine, which I don't tend to read all the time, to be honest, but it's a great and inspired publication. But they talk about a couple who were both infected with COVID-19, who were cohabiting, and this would ramp it up even more because you're not used to each other's. It takes couple of years to synchronise those toothbrushes and routines and bits and pieces, doesn't it? And for everybody to work out their space and to push the limits and boundaries and so you're suddenly pushed together into this kind of semi claustrophobic space, particularly if you're like a big family, sort of 3 children or whatever in a small flat, and so there's that. And then what happens if one or both of you have this virus? Because even though it's the fatality for younger people is quite low, it still can hit a lot of people very hard, and it's nasty when you look at the sort of descriptions of the symptoms that people give. So there's a case that they're describing in this magazine where they're both kind of quite anxious. One of them is, and I'm not quite sure when you've both got it whether you need to do that, but that would be a matter of personal preference. But obviously, if one of you's got it, one of you hasn't. But one of them's sleeping on the sofa and the other one's in the bedroom, and they're coughing and all this kind of thing. And that would be quite frictional. It would be quite difficult. That would be quite a challenge to overcome.
Yes, it is a challenge because, of course, you have to live in separate rooms. If you happen to be in the same household and one of you is ill and the other one isn't, you will have to have your own confinement space. All the stuff you use, towels, bed sheets, cups, cutlery, all have to be treated completely separate and washed from anything else around your household. So it is a difficult and it's challenging when it comes that just the one, if it is 2 of you and one of them it's not very well and the other one is basically taking the burden of everything, so that can take the relationship into a very tricky and sticky situation. But you have to keep going. So that's when you find the strength within yourself and the love that you feel for this person. And of course, none of us decided upon us what we have, this situation that we are going through. So it is a matter of understanding each other. It is a matter of understanding yourself, and just try to keep that little spark of positivity that we all have inside, and just plow through. We're gonna get through this very easily.
Another huge way in which the dynamic is changing as a result of coronavirus is the way that we spend our leisure time if we are a couple. And there are kind of 4 traditional ways that we would spend leisure time. There would be the time we spend together. There'd be the time we spend apart doing our own respective things. I'm doing my radio show, whatever. There'd be the time that we're each with each other's. I'm with all the boys and she's with all the girls. And there'd be the time when we'd be actually mingling and spending time with friends. So these are four distinct categories, really, of and it's healthy of the way in which people normally interact as a couple. Suddenly, it's gone, and it's all number one. The time spent together. So there's a sense in which that is a not an entirely healthy thing, but because
I feel that.
And we. Our friends now are on the other, even our son. They're on the other end of this screen here, and it's a very challenging the thing to try and keep relationships going. I mean, my elderly uncle I was talking about earlier, he hasn't got any kind of smart anything. So all he's got, his mobile phone, he doesn't even know the number to. So you have to wait till he's home and then ring him up, and then he can't hear very well. And so we have to think as well about the neighbours, the people who are around us, who some of these guys are going to be really in trouble. And we've been very fortunate here in that there are these network groups who've been leafleting everybody. Now, see, I'll have to have a word with them on that because, again, the people who need the help most probably haven't got WhatsApp and probably haven't even got Facebook. So that perhaps that model needs a bit of refining, shall we say? But the fact is the principle is there, and groups of neighbours are getting together. Certainly here in Cambridge where we live, and taking steps to make sure that nobody in the community is disadvantaged. There'll be people who are, for example, perhaps self-isolating because they've got a cough or this kind of thing. Well, they can't go down to the shops. And rightly so. So if somebody can leave a parcel on the doorstep for them or whatever, and ring the bell and run away, that would be such a helpful thing, and such a way in which we can rediscover something that's been lost in our society. I think. When I was young, people helped one another much more. Neighbours would get together far more often. There was far more camaraderie. There was far more togetherness. It wasn't such a divided society with people pursuing different goals, pursuing different kind of courses, and the sort of I'm all right, Jack mentality. And I think anything that brings us back to rediscover our humanity and to get away from that aspect of things has absolutely got to be a very positive step as we look at how the world is going to be moving forward. And I think it's going to be very important to take away and to take on board some of the good things that have come out of this bad thing and carry them forward with us, so that when this problem is no longer a problem, and when we're out and about mingling and doing our things again, we don't forget that poor neighbour down the road, or we don't forget the isolated person up the street and this kind of thing. And I do very strongly feel that is an important takeaway from these critical times that we now face.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. I come from a background in which we always look after our parents, our elders. When my mother fell very ill and I had to work very hard, I took basically to pay the medications. We didn't have the NHS and in Mexico. That's where I'm from. So I had to work very hard. But what I ensured was that there was someone with my mother at all times when I was away, giving her not just basic care but also love. So I think this time now, we come to appreciate what it is really of value, which are relationships, which is communication, understanding, and hey, let's stop being busy fools. Money, yes, but it just washes down. But what it stays, it's the relationship that you build with your children, with your couple, with your partner, with your husband, wife, significant other, however you want to call it. That's what basically resetting those values.
And the Sunday Times published an article about 10 days ago which was rapidly denied, that there were certain elements in government who were saying, well, we'll sacrifice the elderly and the weak to save the economy. And I think that's an appalling viewpoint. Whether it was said or not is a matter of some controversy. But it should be our job to protect those in society who need it most, and we need to carry this forward. We need to carry this forward, not just in this particular moment of crisis that we find ourselves now, as I said before, but I think if that's a big takeaway that we can take out of this, and this thing about our parents, you see, it's kind of quite convenient to dump them in the old nursing home, but now you see, with quite apart from the fact that once they get there, they are going to be pumped full of psychotropic medicines so that they're gaga and not a nuisance. They're not going to be looked after properly, and that's something that it's not too common in our society, but I did this for mine. My parents had been together like half a century, and they wanted to spend every moment they could together, so I kept them together at home. And my dad had little trips to the hospital in his last days, but he came back home, and it wasn't until the day he died that he went to the hospice at 10 in the morning, and at 6 he was gone. And similarly, then I found myself looking after my mum, and when her time came to go, she was at home, and we had sort of carers coming into the house. The carer was actually my cleaner, who it turned out was a nurse, and so I said, bugger the cleaning, just look after mum, and kind of that's what she did. And again, my mother spent all bar the last few hours of her life in her home, and thereby she didn't suddenly find after 2 or 3 days that she had severe Alzheimer's or something like this from a change of circumstance, change of situation, because older people get very set in their ways, and when you extract them from their environment, it's very, very damaging. And so this is particularly highlighted now in a case where it is expected that if there's one case of COVID-19 in a nursing home, maybe a third of the residents will die. So because it's an unnatural kind of environment. It's not good, but particularly at the sort of lower end of the scale. I'm sure there are one or two good establishments, but I think on the whole, if you can find the time. I mean, look, all I had to do in my parents' twilight years, I would pop in 4 or 5 times a week, and they sometimes used to come to visit me. So it's really no biggie, and I just moved them, 2 or 3 streets away. It isn't the great burden that you think it is, and so I think moving forward, I would say it's great if it's possible to do something like that. So yes, Veronica mentions the talking heads who were talking about sacrificing members of the community, and this was this idea of herd immunity, which sounded pretty good when they articulated it from their podia, but when you thought about it, the way that herd immunity works in a society is that if most people are immune to the disease, it can't really gain a foothold. But traditionally, the way we do that is through vaccination, people. It's not through a sort of cull of the weak and vulnerable. And it's great, really, that nations have turned back from this course of action, which would have been disastrous. We were, in a lot of the Western countries, we were quite slow to respond to this crisis. We've seen this in Italy. We've seen this in Spain. Things would have been a lot better here in the UK if we had responded a couple of weeks earlier, because now we have certainly got a lot of cases. One of the reasons we're at home now is because the best way to nip this thing in the bud is to have just a few cases and to trace everybody they've been in contact with. And that could have been done. And we had flights coming in from Wuhan, for goodness sake. We had flights, a whole thing full of football supporters, hundreds of them, came in from Spain. And they were just sort of wandering around. This is very, very bad. It isn't going to happen now. We are going to have, nobody is more of a civil libertarian than me, and I'm up at the barricades with the next one waving the flag and all that kind of thing and saying they don't like it up them or whatever. But there are times, and this is one of them, when it's necessary to sort of hunker down and do the right thing. And many thousands of people now will die than would have died if we'd done this 3, 4 weeks ago, because of the way that exponential growth works. It trickles away and you think, and I saw these people posting on Facebook, it's nothing to worry about, I'm going to my party, it's all a scare tactic. But no, it's not. And so we will, thankfully, if everybody obeys this curfew, the peak of this crisis will appear in about 2-3 weeks' time, because all the people who've been infected by then will have been infected, and that's why they're rolling out these hospitals. I think, was it the NEC in Birmingham as well as Excel in London? And I believe there's a venue in Scotland as well. 4,000 beds apiece. Dyson, that very clever fella, has had his scientists, researchers, make a ventilator, and the NHS has placed an order for 20,000 of those, and it also cleans the floor as well. That's just a joke. But it's wonderful to see, and he did that in 10 days. So it's wonderful to see everybody sort of pulling together on this one, and us all working together as a society. It's a shame that sometimes, it has to be something really tragic to trigger that. Can we not do that in the normal course of events? And I remember the 1960s. I was a little wee boy in short trousers, but everything was going like love and peace, man, and they had garlands of flowers around them and all that. What's wrong with that?
Did you used to wear this? What were you thinking?
Well, I was only about 6 at the time,
and
I would have got kicked out of school. But I was how old was I? Let me think about this. I was when the 1960s ended, I was 11.
Wow.
In fact, I was 11 on the day the 1960s ended, so you can work that out later. But yeah, so some good will come out of this. I think there will be relationships that don't make it, but maybe they would have not made it anyway, and maybe it just sort of hastens the bad day. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I think yes, you are correct. Some relationships won't survive. Some relationships will flourish because they will understand that spark that got them together in the first instance. It's going to give the opportunity for those couples that live apart. It's going to be the opportunity to really have that direct and honest conversation with each other and see their values, and do the values align with each other to carry on to form a family. If you have a family, these values that you are building in your household in these perilous times are pivotal to give that cohesion as a family, that gel as a family. And let's just, like I say, be creative. Have your own routines. Stick to the routines. Have your dates in having a coffee in the kitchen. Be creative in every single way with your work. And be accountable to yourself. So challenging. Happiness, it's up to you. Happiness is a state of mind. So if you choose to be happy in this period of time, it will just do wonders to your well-being. Meditate, exercise, do your yoga, do whatever it is you. Don't lose yourself amongst this.
Yes, and I have to say that pandemics like this, they don't happen they don't happen every day. It's not even a once in a lifetime thing. It's about a once in a century thing. I'd like us to kind of spare a thought for the people who were affected the last time around. It was called Spanish flu because there was a huge clampdown on information about this, but the Spanish were fairly sort of open about it. It killed more people than the First and Second World Wars combined. And what they didn't have, what we have now, due to the technologies that we have, we've invited you into our homes this evening to share our thoughts. So hello, Abel and Shaquille and Carol. Haven't seen you for a long time, and also Tony. So we've been able to really sort of create this little sense of community. We're all stuck at home. We're all going absolutely crazy. But what is it? Was it Monsters Inc? Sharing is caring, I think. And by talking about the issues, and thank you to everybody who's been commenting, because it helps to sort of get different perspectives on things, because our perspective isn't necessarily kind of the right one, but all we can do is do our best and share our experiences with you at this very difficult and very sort of critical time. But the last Spanish flu, not only they didn't have the same meds that we have, 1918, it was pretty primitive, they sort of saw your arm off with a hacksaw or something, and then put tomato ketchup on the bit where it had come off, so it was very, very basic, and now we have got some very fine and very dedicated professionals in our health services all around the world, and these guys are putting their lives on the line for us, because they are working extremely long hours, which reduces their immunity to this. And the doctor who blew the whistle in Wuhan about this virus, he was about 30, wasn't he? He was a youngster, and working because of the sort of very long doctor hours that he was working, he died. So that is, nobody can do more than that for us. So everything that could possibly conceivably being done to help us is being done. And the least we can do, is stay home for a bit and watch Netflix, huh?
Yeah. We are soldiers on this venture, on these things. We are soldiers, and the best thing we can do for those that we don't have the experience or the expertise of medical expertise is just to stay home and stay safe and keep everybody else safe.
Absolutely. Hello to Wayne, and hello to Colin, who's just joined us.
Hello, Colin.
Colin and I are kind of very fond of scientific chats and discussions and things. I sent Colin this morning my predictions for my thoughts on how many people actually have this virus at the moment, and I think it's well over. Don't tell anyone, but I think it's well over 400,000. And many of these people will not show any symptoms at all and will not even be aware that they've had it. A few of them will have just a little sniffle, and I saw this disease described as, and I thought this was the best description that I've seen of coronavirus, described as being like the flu, but without the vaccine available.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are. So it's no big deal as such, but it is for the people for whom that vaccine would be their lifeline. They'd go every winter and have the old jab, and then they could happily go around about their day-to-day lives. If that lifeline was suddenly cut off, then we'd all be running to hide from the flu. So it's the fact that this is a new thing, I guess. Our relationships. Will our relationships be the same? Will our relationship be the same after this?
I think they'll be much stronger.
That was the right answer. That was the one I was hoping you'd say. We're not allowed to shake hands, but we can't. Oh, well, I don't think we are we? No. Prince Charles nearly did it the other day. Oh, absolutely, sanitise me. And look at him now. So kind of, it's hitting celebs, and I think that probably sends the message home to the sort of the great people out there, because those who read the red tops, because if suddenly Prince Charles has got it and Tom Hanks has got it, they're thinking, whoa, and we live in this sort of society where people follow celebs like that. I believe one of the Kardashians or something has done a T-shirt saying "Wash your hands," which is for sale for some high price on their website. But every little bit helps. I was quite shocked to see, that would be 2 weekends ago, here in Cambridge. We live opposite a car park, which is a great, lovely thing to look out of windows in the morning. It'll be worse when they turn it into a multi-storey car park in a year or two. But it was completely deserted. I went into the middle of that car park, not a soul in sight. And then a good friend of mine, Richard Bowser, who comes from Hove on the south coast, posted a photograph of crowds milling around on the seafront as if it's just a normal Saturday morning, which of course it wasn't. And I'm sad to say that a lot of those people in that picture will probably be hospitalised, hopefully, and will make a full recovery after what has happened. I believe that you've got something you'd like to add, Eva.
It's basically it's just a few thoughts coming. Basically, in a nutshell, we need to live according to our values when it comes to relationships, and more so in these times. We need to continue to have our goals. We need to continue to do what is important to us as a couple, as a family, and to yourself. And you need to make an effort. Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. So you have to make an effort, continue your goals, continue your values, align to them. Persevere, take the risks in the relationship. For example, eat some tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes. He loves tomatoes, but so I take the risk also, I take tomatoes. But basically, you need to make sacrifices. So this is a huge sacrifice. But at the same time, to be away from our friends. I have a lovely group of friends which sometimes get together. I move away, but I still get in touch with them. So I'm looking forward to perhaps put something together and have a Zoom conversation with my friends. Just keep those relationships going. But in a nutshell, it's a sacrifice, but there is a meaning, and there is the other side, which we're going to come out fresh and anew in our relationships with ourselves and with our beloved ones.
And that's a good point on which to end it. Thank you so much for your company tonight, for joining us in our home on this very kind of emotional evening, I guess, because it's day 3 of an extraordinary situation that just sort of popped up on us quite unexpectedly out of the blue. So stay well, stay sane, stay safe, and we'd be totally honoured if you join us at the same time tomorrow.
Okay, that's on you. Tomorrow. Bye. Gosh. I guess so.